Today for our daily devotion we are in Acts 19 verse 32 through to chapter 20 verse 3. It's quite an exciting passage, isn't it? Paul is in Ephesus, this big diverse pagan city in modern day Turkey. He's been preaching the gospel and many people have turned to Jesus. They've been turning from their old lives, from their idols, from their sorcery, from their magic, and they've been turning to Jesus. And this has a noticeable impact on the city. The city has been transformed at a grassroots level. We read yesterday that maybe as much as £5 million worth of pagan magic scrolls were burned. And the local silversmiths, they were losing their income. They were fearing for their future as people turned from idols to Christ. So in today's reading, that's set in the temple or the theatre of the Greek god Artemis, or also known as Diana by the Romans, and you can still visit the ruins of that temple to this day in modern day Turkey. Experts say that it would have held 25,000 people, a huge temple, a major treasury of the ancient world, like the first World Bank. One of 7 wonders of the world. And in fact, we know historically 8 years prior to Paul being there, 44 AD, there'd been this major financial scandal that had resulted in rioting. So the officials here in the city, they were understandably concerned of Paul's impact on the people. They wanted to avoid rioting. And it's that sort of toxic combination of politics and religion and money, and how that brings out the worst in people. And here's Paul preaching the gospel, and it's like the whole city is against him. There's this clash of the kingdoms of light and the kingdoms of darkness colliding. It's absolute chaos. It says for 2 hours, this massive crowd of people shouted in union, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." Absolute chaos. Of course, it doesn't matter how many people shout it. It doesn't matter how loudly they shout. It doesn't make something true, does it? And it's certainly no match for the truth of the gospel that is spreading throughout this region. The power and truth of the gospel. You know, if we go back 20, 30, maybe 40 years in this country, we were in the unusual context where for Christians in this country, Christianity was the majority. We had a place around the table in government, in politics, and the great institutions of our nation. Christians were generally respected within society. I don't feel that is so much the case these days. The world has changed so much. The world that we live in now as followers of Jesus is a little bit more like the context that Paul found himself in today's passage, where perhaps he felt like a lone voice against the weight of the crowds, a lone preacher standing against the weight of the political, religious, financial institutions of the day of Ephesus. It seems a little bit like, for us, a new circle has been drawn in society, and those who hold to biblically faithful lifestyles often find themselves on the outside of the circle. But that was the norm for many Christians in the world. And here is Paul simply getting on with it, simply prioritizing, sharing the good news and making disciples, doing what Jesus had commanded him to do, often rejected, frequently persecuted, working in suboptimal conditions, to say the least. But God's kingdom was advancing, because nothing and no one can stop God's kingdom from advancing. The temple of Artemis now lies in ruins, but the Church of Jesus continues to grow and flourish across the globe. Yes, we still face a clash of the idols of our age, consumerism, radical individualism, just to name 2, but we may find in the future we clash with the religious, political, financial institutions of our nations. Who knows? The point is this: the call and the commission remain the same, even if the context changes. And so I wonder what it might look like for you and for me today to engage in that commission, to make Jesus known and to make disciples. Have a wonderful day.